So hello, I'm Deb Gunther at Methuen, the home team, and I'm here with Tim Millett-Parks and Hillary Knoll, also from Methuen. We really appreciated the feedback 2 weeks ago. We're really looking forward to the open house this evening, having a lot of conversations with the community, something we're really looking forward to. I want to acknowledge our team, but I also want to acknowledge this amazing experience and raise up the idea that all of us have teams that are quite diverse and quite variety of disciplines, and that's not always the case. And a critical role I think that we can all play when we go out into the typical market project is to continue to raise up the idea of how important it is to bring these resilient ideas to projects with this really wide range of disciplines. So our team includes Integral Group, HRNA Advisors for Economics, the Chinatown Community Development Corporation, Alta Planning and Design, doing bike planning and mobility, the Resilient Design Institute, Moffitt Nichols Coastal Engineers, and Urban Biofilters doing prototyping, and Biohabitats, who also, they're amazing ecologists, also doing really great wastewater work. And Streetwise, who we're working with on a health impact assessment in Denver, and Antwi and his team, Antwi Acomb, are actually at the City of Oakland right now talking about resilience planning, so they couldn't be here with us. But we're excited to have them on the team. So Tim's going to start us off with a story, and then we're going to actually play our video. It's about an 8-minute video, and I have to do a shout out to Graham, Katie, and Sandy, who are here in the room, and then Jason and Logan, who are listening online, who really poured their heart and soul into this video and the project. And then Hillary is going to wrap up by summarizing our main direction.
So I'm just going to start with a sort of quick personal anecdote that kind of goes back to when we first started talking about our team's approach to this work. We tried to think, as a team, what had defined home for us as individuals sort of throughout our lives, what had helped us understand where we were from. And one of the personal stories that emerged actually had a real sort of connection to infrastructure, and it was the Rural Electric Cooperative in my hometown. It was called the Big Sandy, RECC. Big Sandy was the river that ran through the area. It was the name of the watershed where all the co-op members lived. And so through the name of that infrastructure, it gave us a sense of a connection to a larger region and an ecology that was not just our hometown or our local school. And it was a kind of nuanced way of understanding place and who your neighbors were. These co-ops also meant being able to afford your house payment in some cases because your power bill was affordable. This is my grandfather's membership certificate. He bought in for $10 in the 1950s, and now he's fully vested, and he gets a rebate check every month instead of a bill. And these weren't uncommon in many of these communities. These co-ops were a source of local pride and job training, local employment. And in the 3 design opportunities that we want to share with you today, some of the attributes of these co-ops are brought forward. Affordability, local ownership, shared wealth, a focus on vulnerable populations, and uniting communities throughout their watershed, providing a broader understanding of home as a part of a complex and beautiful ecology. And so just with that in mind, we are going to play our video. We began this process by asking questions. What is home? What are the boundaries of home? What are the places we love? What will our home look like in the future? The Bay Area is in crisis. When large groups of our neighbors can't afford to live in their homes, then the model for living in the Bay is broken for all of us. Many of our most vulnerable communities, those enduring poverty and structural racism, also live in areas that are highly susceptible to sea level rise and flooding. We need solutions that allow neighborhoods to remain in place and thrive. We must produce more housing, preserve low-income housing, and protect residents from displacement while improving the quality of neighborhoods for everyone. The home team proposes the creation of priority resilience areas where new ideas of home emerge from a healthy and dynamic bay ecosystem. New regional patterns along the Bay Edge intertwine the health of the Bay and the health of our neighbors. Working in partnership with community members, we will use design as research to take on challenges and create opportunities for communities to relate, adapt, and thrive. North Richmond is a place of historic racial inequity. African Americans who arrived in the Bay for the World War II shipbuilding effort were forced to settle in the low-lying area, cut off from other communities by railroads and infrastructure. Communities well organized, developing a North Richmond vision plan, programs at the Verde School, and greening projects with Urban Tilth. Green infrastructure and floating trails can address flooding while enhancing quality of life. By improving walkability and bikeability to BART and the ferry terminal, residents can reduce commute times to re-engage with Bay nature at Point Malate as part of a daily routine. Horizontal levees and improvements to wastewater infrastructure open up opportunities to build new, permanently affordable housing. The community and the ecosystem will thrive, catalyzed by an urban ecology business incubator that is a source of jobs, innovative housing, and a clean energy park on the site of the former landfill. In the near term, the North Richmond Water Reclamation Plant can provide treatment with constructed wetlands, allowing for pocket marsh connections that are healthier for the Bay Edge. As waters rise, the constructed wetlands transition to salt marshes to augment the Bay's estuarine habitat. Looking 20 years out, decentralized wastewater systems can be located in each neighborhood. These wastewater systems look like greenhouses open to the public. They can also process increased nutrients and return clean water to the Bay. As infrastructure is relocated to inland conditions, the waterfront is freed up for new floating housing and ecological restoration. Students from Kennedy High School in Richmond have shared visions of healthy food, floating homes, rooftop gardens, and multimodal transport. Stacking funding sources for ecology, wastewater, and health can support this neighborhood transformation, a priority resilience area in North Richmond. Marin City residents are well organized and tight-knit, yet constant flooding and deep health disparity highlight inequity within one of the nation's most affluent counties. Improvements to Highway 101 can mitigate its regular flooding and catalyze positive change in Marin City. However, it is essential that the existing residents not be displaced. People here have experience with things not working out in their favor. New economic models need to come first for producing, protecting, and preserving housing. We propose elevating the low-lying portion of Highway 101 to provide a critical second access point to Marin City. A new horizontal levee and marsh areas will adapt to rising water while supporting new affordable houseboat cooperatives. Proposed creek restoration and street retrofits with green infrastructure will help reduce upland flooding. The community thrives as new housing and jobs come to Marin City, and a community reinvestment fund directs revenue to support projects with community benefit, such as an enhanced community center and a community-owned clean energy microgrid. In the short term, the highway median can be redesigned for flood control and provide an immediate response. A raised bay trail can be designed to be part of a new horizontal levee that phases into tidal marsh as sea level rises. In 20 years, an elevated Highway 101 and a reconfigured shoreline support development of a new mixed-use center, providing jobs, healthy food, and permanently supported affordable housing along a living shoreline, with houseboats and a new expanded tidal marsh. Residents, hikers, bikers, and tourists use new trails and floating bridges to move easily between Sausalito, Tam Valley, and Marin City. Resilience investments are a catalyst that can include many co-benefits, such as space for a flea market every Saturday in a new floating town square in this priority resilience area in Marin City. neighborhoods in East Oakland have motivated community organizers with adopted master plans for San Leandro Creek and Arroyo Viejo and a strong citywide resilience plan. But the challenges of racial inequity are clear. Between 2003 and 2013, a young black man in Oakland was as likely to be killed in gun violence as he was to be prepped for college. Our team is committed to a process that recognizes the urgency in that disparity. When we walked Arrowhead Marsh with the community members, we heard that they would like to use the park more, but getting there was frustrating and unpleasant. Trails along the creeks can connect people to Lake Chabot and the Pacific Crest Trail along the new East Bay Greenway, making it easy to be healthy with places to walk, bike, or visit with family and friends. Adaptation can occur as the Bay Edge is restored, with transfer of development rights and community land trusts supporting development of permanently affordable housing for a mix of incomes, including the missing middle, in mixed-use neighborhoods that include local jobs and access to healthy food. A community-based clean energy microgrid, a decentralized wastewater system, and transit accessibility could contribute to more inclusive neighborhoods with shared wealth building. A 20-year vision includes a horizontal levee along the 880 freeway, protecting that essential transportation asset while creating a valuable site for mixed-use, mixed-income housing that supports estuarine life with muted marshes behind the levee. From day one, the trail system can be the framework for mitigating upland flooding with rainwater collection along the creek, in neighborhoods, and along arterials to slow flooding. Opportunities to daylight creeks can be combined with new housing that supports a thriving riparian ecosystem. Investments to improve the site ecology will be made to maximize community benefit while catalyzing development of new, healthy, mixed-income housing in this prime transit-accessible priority resilience area in East Oakland. No one is better at defining and mapping assets and liabilities than community members themselves. The Streetwise app will be an important tool for residents to highlight strengths and barriers from their perspective. Our work with the community will also include prototyping, the piloting of community-driven ideas initiated at relatively low cost, developed in partnership with educational institutions, and can jumpstart the transformations. We look forward to working with the neighbors to hear the stories, understand the hopes, and collaborate on design that strengthens the foundations of home.
All right. So through this collaborative research process, it's been so rich over the last several months. Our team has gained such a deeper understanding of the broad scale and the multifaceted capacity to the challenges ahead of us, and really put the work we do in urban design and sustainability in a much deeper and more grounded context. And like so many of the other teams, we engaged in a very involved mapping process, which revealed a series of kind of critical hotspots as we saw them. And shown here on this map is an outline of some of the potential of these priority resilience areas. We see the need for interdependent and bioregional based solutions that address these regional connections, but ultimately happen at a local scale. And the question we ask continually is, what is that scale, and what's the sort of sweet spot between the local neighborhood and the region? And we feel it is this creek shed. So shown on the map there are probably 18 to 20 or so sites where there's high potential for replicability among these new, what we're calling the priority resilience areas. And the method for establishing these, we see one pathway could be a reevaluation of priority conservation and priority development areas, and really rethinking how those have been developed, and adding that there should be new criteria. Some of that is obviously effects of climate change, but also legacy of environmental injustice, the watershed health and ecosystem, those critical infrastructure leverage points, and the community development need. And these PRAs will focus resources, potentially, into a sort of testing ground and at demonstration projects, which would be highly replicable. And taking it a bit further, the strategy of Relate really pertains up to connections across boundaries. So this is transit and pathways. And the strategy of adapt pertains to new land use patterns, including home interwoven with ecology. And the design strategy of thrive is really about equitable business models, so new land trusts and cooperatively owned district systems. Key for our team, and so many have spoken about it today, is that we must start at these communities who are most vulnerable, and not just because it's the right thing to do, but because there's a really fascinating sort of overlay of lever points as we see them that could become the catalysts for broader change across these PRAs. And this investment opportunity is a chance to look at problems and positing that they are actually the points of the solution. So often the barrier that's the freeway or the raised divided highway or the polluting refinery plant can be reimagined on that site in that community for direct community benefit. And we see this healing gesture of sort of subverting the legacy of environmental injustice as really critical. And we heard this echoed by the North Richmond students when we brought them to our office to do some design workshops. They were most excited about some of the green streets and ideas of growing food on vacant lots, reimagining the adjacent refinery into clean energy in their backyard. And we see this home opportunity as a way to really elevate the best practice in the housing industry. Spur and other groups constantly talk about the preservation of existing affordable deed-restricted units, the protection from gentrification and displacement, and then produce more housing so that we can build our way out of this immense deficit in the area, in the Bay Area. But it's also to sort of couple that with how are we building and what exactly does that housing look like, and what are the new forms that have yet to be really market tested? Additionally, these need to be redesigned with nature, regenerating with whole systems, and reweaving hybrid ecologies. Ultimately, this is for us about adapting in place and ensuring that the dynamic, changing cities, which are always happening around us very quickly, don't lose a sense of home and a sense of place as this occurs. The habitat and habitation matrix that we developed really as a generative tool became so much more, and that home is the true synthesis of these two. It's the blending of creation of habitat for other species alongside with our own human habitation needs. And we're really excited to get into the details of what some of this looks like, thinking of floating housing pier structures, which double as reef and biomimicry habitat for critical indicator species in those particular ecosystem districts. And ultimately, the process is going to be long and hard, and it has to include capacity building among agency building among stakeholders and the community itself that we're working with. We're talking about 3 years, 20 years, and 100 years. So we know that the process is as important as the outcome going forward. With that, we're really optimistic. We see just so much wealth of ideas and opportunities and stacking of co-benefits going forward. And thank you to all of the stakeholders through this process who have brought so much to the table. We're truly standing on the shoulders of giants to move this forward. We look forward to it. Thank you.